Today on Investigate TV Plus, a woman who waited more than an hour for an ambulance says a blocked railroad crossing nearly cost her her life.
That precedent should not override my right to get to the hospital.
We uncover the situation happening in communities across the country.
Plus, preying on those who pray.
I don't think it gets lower than that. I really don't. God bless them.
We examine the scam targeting people of faith.
Then devotion to digging. His very personal touch to ensure lost loved ones have a proper final resting place.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus.
Locomotives crisscrossing thousands of miles of tracks throughout the country help power the multi-billion-dollar transportation industry. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell, but as they move goods across communities, rail traffic and crew logistics can bring them to a halt. When they stop, we found they can cut off neighborhoods, delay first responders, and leave children taking chances with their lives.
This cell phone video captured in Hammond, Indiana in November 2023 shows students climbing over train cars, blocking their way home from school. Two children begin the careful climb down the side of the car, then with no warning, the train lurches forward, sending a little girl jumping for her life.
Oh my God.
In 2024, the Federal Railroad Administration received more than 26,000 complaints of blocked railroads. Some of those complaints had descriptions of ambulances, fire trucks, and police cars having to turn around at the tracks.
In some cases, those first responders are headed toward an emergency.
That became a woman's reality when she suffered internal bleeding, and the only two entrances into her small community were blocked by trains, delaying 911 for more than an hour.
Reporter Adrian Thomas shares her story and reveals why solutions to solve a national problem face an uphill battle.
He looks like he's stopping, doesn't he? He's gonna stop.
Even when we met Joyce Shapiro and her son-in-law Harry Newcomb at their home on Skamania Landing, my crew and I saw for ourselves a freight train pulling to a stop for over a half hour to let another freight train by. A problem Joyce and Harry and their neighbors say is getting out of hand.
It happens enough that you kind of plan ahead when you're going to go somewhere. Give yourself some extra time.
Harry and his mother-in-law Joyce say blocked crossings on Skamania Landing can take anywhere from 30 minutes to up to 2 hours multiple times a day. It's become part of life out in this small community of homes in Stevenson. There are only two entrances to Skamania Landing, one where Skamania Landing Road intersects with Highway 14 and about a mile down the highway at Butler Loop Road. Back in February 2024, Joyce, who suffers from congestive heart failure, knew something was wrong.
And I called my son-in-law and said, he came down and he looked at me, he said, "You're really gray. You call 911 and I'll get the car ready."
Joyce says she was experiencing severe internal bleeding and needed an ambulance fast. She called 911 at 7:54 p.m.
Skamania County 911.
I'm having bleeding from the colon. It started this morning, and I'm even having numbness in my right leg.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and picture out the paramedic.
Joyce says when she's needed an ambulance previously, it only took medics minutes to reach her due to the close proximity of this fire station about a half mile from her son-in-law's home across the train tracks and Highway 14.
What goes through your mind when all this is happening?
Well, I'm not, in the beginning, I'm not terribly distressed. I mean, I think they're going to be here pretty quick.
Harry says 10 minutes after Joyce made the first 911 call, medics called them to say a freight train was blocking their way into Skamania Landing, and that 911 dispatch was working with BNSF to clear the tracks for the ambulance. But it would be 90 agonizing minutes for Joyce before medics could reach her.
Okay, were you just requesting a medic update?
Yeah, they haven't gotten here to pick me up.
Okay. Well, there was a train blocking, and they had just cleared, so they should be arriving here just shortly.
Joyce says she was trying to conserve energy and stay alert, despite losing a considerable amount of blood. She'd later find out terrifying news at the hospital that she was on the cusp of having a heart attack. She still is trying to comprehend how a freight train played such a pivotal role in determining life or death.
They put my life at risk. that night. I realize that they have a preferential treatment to getting their product to wherever it has to be. But that precedent should not override my right to get to the hospital in time to save my life.
According to the American Association of Railroads, improved infrastructure and technological advancement have allowed freight trains to increase in size, leading to more product being moved. The freight trains along this route in the Columbia River Gorge are operated by BNSF. In a response to the concerns in Skamania Landing, a spokesperson for the company tells us, quote, "We make every attempt to minimize road-rail conflicts, efforting to make them as infrequent and as short in duration as possible. At this particular location, the best and safest solution to minimize roadway inconveniences is to either connect existing roadways with an established overpass or build a new overpass at Skamania Landing or Butler Road." BNSF staff has spoken with local residents multiple times over several years and shared this information. Building new infrastructure such as roadways or overpasses is fundamentally a local discussion. Railroads in the United States are regulated by the Federal Railway Administration. However, a spokesperson for the agency tells us there is no federal statute or regulation regarding how long trains may block highway-grade rail crossings. We then took the question of federal regulation to Congresswoman Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez, whose district includes Stevenson and Skamania County.
Should there be a federal law or regulation that limits how long trains can be blocked at crossings or what time of day trains can stop at crossings?
According to the Supreme Court, only the feds have the right to engage in this lawmaking. And so I think it's important that if Congress isn't going to bring it up, we need to empower more local authorities to come to a table and get a good outcome for our communities.
Public Works Director David Waymeyer says any type of solution around the blocked crossings here would be a difficult project that could take years.
I think an overpass would be your only option, but the tracks are within 100 feet of Highway 14, so it's going to be a pretty major project if that were to ever happen. If we had the funding, I think funding is the first thing to secure, obviously, because it's going to be a multi-million-dollar project to do something like that.
Shortly after, we started asking questions. Representative Gluesenkamp-Perez sent a message directly to BNSF CEO Catherine Farmer. In a publicly released letter, she said in part, quote, "It is critical that a reasonable solution is developed to ensure that these residents have access to medical care without delay." Representative Gluesenkamp-Perez went on to say if the trains must be stopped for a longer period, BNSF should make all efforts to keep one access point open. Reporting in Portland, Oregon, I'm Adrian Thomas.
In December 2024, we reached out to BNSF to ask about its communication with the county and its efforts to fix the issue. A company spokesperson gave us a similar statement to the one provided 9 months prior, with one addition, quote, "If there is a mechanical issue for safety, we won't be able to move the train until it is safe to do so." We asked further questions, including its policy for unblocking roadways, but they did not answer. You can read the company's full statement on InvestigateTV.com. Search Trapped by Trains. Still ahead, erosion and sea level rise reshape our shorelines.
We have seen this place change dramatically over the past couple of years.
We take you to the area losing more land than anywhere else in the country and the effort to protect it.
But first, fraudsters go after houses of worship and their members.
In all of the churches that I've served, this has happened, every single one. It's just gotten a lot more frequent now.
We show you the warning signs to avoid this sinful scam.
Jeannie Wasserman says a fake Facebook friend broke her bank and her heart.
That was my downfall right from the beginning, believing the first person that talked to me that he loved me.
She thought she had fallen in love with a military officer stationed in the Middle East, and when he asked for money for a chopper ride out of Syria, she sent him $138,000 before she realized she'd been tricked with stolen photos.
I just broke down crying. I really let my family down.
Experts say scammers often try to swindle their victims out of money by manipulating their emotions.
It's not just through romance. We found scammers are using people's faith against them by posing as pastors.
Reporter Cassidy Williams shows us the warning signs.
Built in 1744, the Kensington Congregational Church has been through hundreds of seasons of giving. But with time and new technology, scammers are using that generosity to cash in.
I kept getting emails from some of my congregants saying, "What's the matter? What do you need?"
Pastor Holly Norwick says she started getting confusing messages. That's because many of her parishioners received texts like this one. The scammers were posing as her and asking for help, writing,
"I need to get Apple gift cards today for some woman battling cancer in the hospital, but I can't do that right now because of my busy schedule. Can you get it from any nearby store now?"
But Norwick didn't send that message.
In all of the churches that I've served, this has happened, every single one. It's just gotten a lot more frequent now.
So how did the scammers get the names and numbers for Norwick's congregation? The day prior, office manager Kim Lawrence got an email from whom she thought was the music director asking for the church directory. Lawrence later realized it wasn't actually the music director she emailed the directory to.
I think that someone targeting a church, I don't think it gets lower than that. I really don't. God bless them.
Lawrence quickly contacted the congregation to let them know not to buy the gift cards, and she's working on changing their website to make it harder to find people's emails. They want to warn other churches and congregations to have their guard up.
They put in the email that they're busy for a reason, that they don't want to call, they just want a quick text. Ignore that piece and call.
Because sometimes old school communication is the best way to make sure your offerings end up in the right hands.
Well, she was right. How low can you get targeting a church like that? And it's just awful.
That's why it's important to let people know this is possible, so be on the lookout.
Be on guard, yes.
And while this kind of con is novel, it's not new. We found instances of this happening in states from Missouri to South Carolina, Indiana, and Wisconsin. In 2019, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton issued an alert after churches throughout the state reported this type of scam.
Still ahead, meet the man who digs hundreds of holes by hand.
Yeah, most of these I buried.
Why his dedication to his cemetery spans more than half a century.
But first,
this is how we protect our protection.
The solution for a coast in crisis.
It starts at our shoreline. It starts at the barrier islands.
We examine one of the efforts underway to keep shorelines from shrinking.
It's a small port on the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, but it plays a major role in supplying America's oil. Port Fourchon is a major hub for offshore oil companies and produces roughly 15% of the country's oil supply.
But this critical port faces a growing threat. Researchers at Louisiana State University found the beach to the south of Port Fourchon loses more land from sea level rise and erosion than any other place in the U.S.
That long, thin strip of land helps protect the port from storm surges produced by hurricanes.
Protecting that land has become a bigger priority for some of those who use the port every day.
Reporter John Snell uncovers one potential solution they employ in hopes to save a coast in crisis.
Right behind this dirt berm here is newly created land.
Chet Chasson might not seem like the first person who would be showing off an environmental project. Chasson runs the largest port on the Gulf of Mexico, serving oil and gas companies. But on this day, he's showcasing Port Fourchon's latest land building effort.
Part of the 1,200 acres of marsh we've created since the year 2000.
The port spent $4 million on the project, dredging material and delivering it by pipe to create instant marsh.
Every bit of sand that we can, or material that we can put on our coast in any of these locations is better than it was the day before.
There's also a practical aspect to this. The new land provides a buffer against hurricanes.
That we have to do things that are going to help provide for environmental sustainability, along with energy and economic impact.
We have seen this place change dramatically over the past couple of years.
Simone Malaz of the group Restore the Mississippi River Delta points to Hurricane Ida in 2021. It bulldozed its way up Highway 1 through Lafourche Parish, upending lives, destroying property, and tearing up marsh that may never be the same. Yet long before Ida, this area suffered some of Louisiana's most dramatic land loss.
We are at the heart of two of the most abundant estuaries right here in coastal Louisiana, but really in North America. But it is also the heart of land loss.
Just down the road, Ducks Unlimited worked with the port and other partners to install these terraces along Highway 1. It creates new land where marsh had converted to open water.
We were able to create habitat by building islands out in open water that was historically marsh. We're able to stabilize the area and stop additional loss and erosion from happening.
Cassidy Lejeune, Ducks Unlimited's Director of Conservation Programs, says they installed 80,000 linear feet of terraces. At $4.7 million, it's a bargain by coastal restoration standards, and Lejeune says it complements other projects next door.
It's really kind of eating the elephant a bite at a time. What we do alone isn't moving the needle, but when we work together with other agencies and entities and organizations, we can make a difference.
The state has spent hundreds of millions of dollars on larger projects nearby. It restored beach along the Caminada Headland west of Grand Isle and rebuilt marsh behind it. The idea, in future storms, instead of disappearing, the beach will roll back onto the marsh.
This is how we protect our protection. This is really the epitome of the multiple lines of defense. It starts at our shoreline. It starts at the barrier islands.
A view from space shows how, over the decades, Port Fourchon ballooned in size as it dredged canals or built new boat slips. The law requires those who change the landscape offset any harm to nature, that they mitigate for the damage.
So we've done above and beyond mitigation as well, because it's the right thing to do and it's what we need to do to sustain our heritage, our culture, and our economic way of life.
Louisiana's Coastal Master Plan lays out a vision for the future that includes marsh creation projects on both sides of Bayou Lafourche. The darker green area seen here covers a footprint of the 29,000 acres. Advocates say it likely can only be built in phases with a price tag topping $1 billion.
Up next, we introduce you to one of the hardest workers you'll ever meet.
I had 7 jobs at one time I was doing.
And explain why he's been digging for decades. We know him as the 16th President of the United States, but before Abraham Lincoln became one of the country's most iconic leaders, he held a number of jobs. Among them, he was a store clerk, a postmaster, and a gravedigger.
Other notable names who were once gravediggers: music stars Tom Petty and Joe Strummer, frontman of The Clash.
One Wisconsin man took a job as a gravedigger nearly 60 years ago and never stopped.
In fact, he's dug more than 500 graves, and he does it all by hand. Reporter Jeff Alexander shows us how.
At the Pine Hill Cemetery in Armstrong Creek, Frankie Kovalkuski has a job to do. A job he's done for the last 59 years, 535 times and counting.
Oh, what a shovel.
All in the same cemetery?
Yep.
How many hours have you spent there?
Many.
Born in Armstrong Creek and raised in a large Polish family, Frankie was never afraid of work and working hard.
I had 7 jobs at one time I was doing.
That would be town assessor, town board member, town constable, a logger, a cemetery monument salesman, and a school bus driver, all in 1966 when a job offer to dig graves came along. On average,
yeah, most of these I buried.
Frankie digs around 10 graves a year.
He got killed in a car accident, that guy.
Typically, he'll receive a call from a funeral home with a few days' notice, but not always. He's had to dig in the middle of the night.
Well, they call me sometime late, and I got to have it ready for the next day. What do? You got to get it done.
So you're out there with a flashlight?
Yeah, lights, yeah.
For his very first grave, Frankie earned $15. Today, it's up to $400, but he says he's still the cheapest digger around. Sometimes he gets lucky and it's easy digging. Other times, he's fighting against tree roots and rocks.
What I do, a big pick, loosen it up, and throw them out.
Inside his home,
the whole cemetery, who's buried where.
Frankie has maintained detailed maps and records of all the cemetery's plots.
Yeah, that's who owns it and who's buried where. Lot 1, area A.
He even has the burial permits for every grave he's ever dug. It's no wonder then.
I know the cemetery was blindfolded.
Why he's always happy to assist cemetery visitors. Over the years,
this is my sister buried here, and her husband.
Frankie has laid to rest a number of his family members.
I dug for my mom, dad, my uncles and aunts, and my 2 brothers and 2 sisters.
Was that always kind of sad, or what was that like?
It's my job. It's my job.
A job Frankie has always taken extreme pride in. And at 81, he's not done yet. His goal is to reach 600 graves dug in his small community, including a very personal one.
Who's going to dig yours someday?
I'm going to dig it myself. And I'm going to put a box in there and put a cover on it.
That's it for us on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Tisha Pell.
And I'm Lee Zurich. Thanks for watching. On the next Investigate TV Plus.
If you have something that has research that shows that it is harmful, not only just not beneficial, but harmful to children, it should be banned.
We investigate a decades-old teaching method researchers say actually hurts children's ability to read and what experts and parents want to change.